Welcome to Mercy's Designs. My name is Mercy and I sell Stampin' Up! Products. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing how I made this waterfall card using Follow Your Art Suite. So this is a lot of fun, but it could be a little time consuming with all the coloring and die cutting. So I did want to talk about one alternative, which is to use DSP. My card inspiration came from this card, which my upline showed me how to make. And you can see most of these layers are DSP. So you can definitely simplify this by using DSP for your layers or your falls. This is the suite, Follow Your Art, and it has some beautiful designer series paper, which unfortunately I don't have at this point, but I did use the retired, what is that one? Fizz, what is it called? I have it written down. Oh, Bubbles and Fizz DSP. And it has somewhat of a similar color scheme. So bear with me and we will get started. The pole measures 2 inches by 8.5, and I have this template made, and it will make it a lot simpler if you follow a template. So I use the heavy Whisper White, and the first measurement I'm going to go ahead and score at 2 inches. And then we are going to score every 1/2 inch. So 2.5, and then 3, and we will end with 3.5. And then we'll want to burnish our score lines. So it's very simple scoring. That part is not at all complicated. There are a few parts that are a little confusing, but I will walk you through that by using my templates, because I think that is definitely the best, easiest way to do it. I'm a visual learner and it helps me if I can kind of see it more or less in action. If you just have a bunch of written measurements, for me it's not as effective as showing it, etc., which is why a lot of us love the YouTube channels. Okay, so let's get started. We're gonna do some layers, and I did go ahead and do a lot of the pre-stamping, etc. So you will not be like too bored. The first layer that we're going to do is the first fall here. So what you want to do is you want to take your paper and you want to turn it like this. So here's our step, and we're going to adhere this piece to here. But I did want to quickly explain how these pencils, these is too long, and this was too long. And what I did, which is the same technique as that other one, is I cut it down. So what I did is I cut right here, then I took some glue, and you will hardly notice this at all. And I went ahead and attached it so that it will be a shorter pencil. So you can kind of see, and I just line up those lines. I thought this was kind of clever of me, because now it's a much shorter pencil, which is kind of cute in my opinion, to make them shorter. So again, we will go ahead and start adhering these layers. Well, I have one here. I did cut up a bunch of these because I want to make a number of them and have them ready to go. So I'm just going to quickly go through this part. This again has a lot of little elements that I've gone ahead and die cut and gotten ready. So it's going to hopefully go fairly quickly, but I do suspect this will be a fairly long tutorial. And part of the dies have this beautiful one. Let's see, I want to make sure I'm not off the edge. It looks pretty good. Okay, so this is the only layer you glue on entirely. So I will go ahead and attach this. This is step 1. So step 1, you just go right up to that score line. You don't want to go over the score line. And try to be as precise as possible when you're cutting your cardstock. It will make a difference in the end. And then I do recommend using tear and tape for the next ones, step 2, step 3, and step 4. And I do have a diagram here. I have them all laid out. So step one, I'll just have these in the right order so that I know what goes where. And that also helps avoid any confusion. So what I like to do is, again, use the tear and tape. And I'm just going to guesstimate here and put it directly onto this layer right here. And we will start with building the next layer, which would be this one. So I'm going to get out my Calypso Coral re-inker, if you will, and the little, what is it for, it's kind of a paper clip thingy, and attach that. So I like just using the liquid glue for this part. And I'm trying to avoid bulking it up too much. So I'm not using dimensionals on most of these layers, only on the top one, which you'll see. And the final little thing was the paper clip. Okay, so this is a really adorable little paper clip. I have sticky adhesive on the back. So I'm just going to go ahead and attach that. I wasn't sure I had to still take it off, or I had taken it off though. So you can see how that looks. And I'm just going to remove this. You definitely want to only have it on this part, and you'll see at the end why that's so important. So just try to get your layers as straight as possible, and we'll keep building to the next one. Okay, so the next one would be, actually it doesn't really matter which order, except for the last one is probably the most important. So the next layer we're going to do is this one. So we're going to kind of mix it up a little this time, just because I kind of got it mixed up. So we will go ahead and add that one. And I wanted to show how I cut off, I have part of it still attached here, but I did not die cut the whole thing because we are going to cut off that ribbon well, it's actually like a heart of a ribbon because there's just simply not room. So it's very simple to just cut down on a die cut like this. It's not complicated, although I'm making it look a little complicated, but it's really not. So we're going to just keep building our layers. I'm going to add my glue and attach this. And this one, we're going to add our a little button. So or two buttons, I should say. So here's one of them, and here is the other. And this is just kind of a fun little embellishment to cover up it's a little bit unsightly, I totally admit that ending, because we took off to make room. Okay, so I don't want to cover up too much. These buttons, die cuts, are so cute. I'm kind of crazy about them. Really adorable. All right. You could use liquid adhesive here, but just to be on the safe side, I do prefer to use the tear and tape to make sure I don't go over on anything. And, whoop, I didn't push down hard enough there. Okay, and then our final layer will be this one. And it will also be doing a little bit of stamping. So this one is the one where I can add some bulk. So I have this little ribbon tied around. This is a retired ribbon, but it's fairly recent. But any narrow type ribbon, or you could use baker's twine, anything like that would make a cute little embellishment for this. The other thing I was going to mention is that you can use this as a sample. So if you want to make a little gift for someone, that would be really cute to give them that, like a yard of some kind of ribbon. So I'm just getting my stamp out here, and this one says follow your art, and we're going to just stamp that here, and hopefully, yeah, that came out perfectly. It doesn't always come out perfectly, especially on film when you're filming something. And we're going to go ahead and attach that just offset. Most of the things I have offset for this particular card, because this is very much like artsy, and I think having things offset definitely kind of contributes to that kind of look, if you will. All right, so now we have the whole fall built, and then I will bring in the next part. So I'll bring back in my little example here. What we need to do now is add our DSP here. And with my first card, I added a whole 2x2, and that was a bit of a mistake, and I'll show you why, because it kind of catches here. You kind of have to adjust it, push it under. So I do not recommend that. I do suggest make it smaller, even if there's white space. Because there's a lot of white space on this DSP, it's not as obvious, or it really doesn't, I think, take away too much. But this Bubble and Fizz paper, oh, I'm kind of sad we didn't have this longer, because it is really cute. That's the sad part about some of the products. They go way too fast. But they always are coming out with new. All right, so that is what that looks like. The other thing we need to do is add a little pole. So I will go ahead and do that, and then we will bring in our base soon. So, now what I like to do when I'm going to use a stapler is to go ahead and use a little bit of tape runner, and it just makes it a little simpler when you go to staple to have some kind of adhesive. It's not going to hold long term. It's way too much stress on it. So I'm just going to look here, and I'm doing it upside down because that's the only way, obviously. There's not enough room to shove it in this way. And I like how it came out pretty well. Now we'll bring in our base, and what I suggest doing is to go ahead, use a punch here, and you want to be careful not to do too much or too little. This looks pretty good. I think I could have gotten away with a little bit less, so we'll go ahead and try a little bit less, but you really don't want to be too stingy either. So I'm just looking at this to make sure it's straight, punching it, and now we will go ahead and continue building this. I will bring in my sample, so I wanted just to be able to really give you a visual of this. So this piece goes right here, and this goes here. Now to hold it down, you have this bar. I'm calling it a bar. Let's get it the right way. And it's right across here. So and then this eventually gets tacked down, and that holds it in place to keep it from falling. You do not want to glue right here though, okay? So what we'll do is go ahead, quickly stamp on the bar, because it's easier than doing that after the fact. And I do know that for a fact, because I did it after the fact, because I came up with that idea. And sometimes that's just how it works, and you make things work. But ideally, at this point, this would be good to go ahead and stamp this, and I can kind of guess where I need it. Okay? The other thing I'm going to mention is that I have this double thick. And the reason why that's important is because there's a lot of stress on this, and I want it really reinforced. Yes, it adds a little bulk, but in the end, I think it's worthwhile. Now, I'm going to use this 3M foam tape to go ahead and attach to here, to the ends. I don't want it too close so you see that foam, but you definitely want it fairly close there because it's creating a bridge. And now I'll go ahead and add some tear and tape, because we definitely need some tear and tape. Sorry, here I'm just moving around things. It's bulky around. And again, you do not want this too wide, because we're going to have this come right down the center. I was so confused the first time I was introduced to this card, But now I totally understand it, and it isn't as complicated as it might look initially, because initially it looks like, oh my, I can never do that. So I hope I'm making it more simplified, and by having these templates to show you just how it's really not as bad as it looks. So again, we're going to recreate this like that. So here we go. I'm just going to flip this up, and I want it to eventually be about there. And at this point, it doesn't matter too much. We're not going to fuss with it. The main thing is, at this point, is we're adhering this part. So the only part I want to make sure is straight. I do it about halfway. Some people do these lower. That part is not as critical. That comes down a little bit to personal preference. So as you can see, now it's just loosey-goosey, and that would never do. But we're going to go ahead and take off this tear and tape now, and get, see, it really helps if you push down hard on tear and tape, and then it comes off, the backing comes off so much easier. So if you ever are struggling with that, that is the issue, that you're not putting enough pressure on it. So I'm going to try to center this as best as I can. And I think I need it a little bit to the, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then we just simply come straight down and marry these. So now you can see how the mechanism works. But we did not stamp, and that's okay, because now we can see where everything is. The only thing I would suggest doing at this point, we could have stamped this earlier, is go ahead and put a little pencil mark here, because we want this message to be hidden. So we do not want to stamp below these pencil marks. So I'm going to bring in my Calypso Coral, and I'm going to bring in my Granny Apple Green ink pads, and we will go ahead and do some stamping. So we have this paint. You paint my world with happiness, and you make everything sparkle. So this time I'm going to do it reversed from what I did. So far so good. And the Calypso Coral, any type of red, just tap it lightly. Any type of red is more likely to have issues. So as far as like it will like smear, etc. So you want to make sure you dry it. I'm just going to go ahead and erase my pencil marks. And you don't want this too high up, because you definitely want it to be easy for the viewer to look at it. Okay, I could have done a little better job. I didn't need to do it quite that dark, but for the sake of the video, I wanted you to be able to see it. Okay, so now you can see why it's important to do this. The other thing is having this foam tape really helps as well. I did make a card earlier, and with this one I did not add the foam, and it really stresses it. And I also did larger, it's like 3/4 of an inch here between them. So I didn't like this quite as well, but I wanted to show you why I changed that. And this is working better because I have the DSP shorter. So isn't this fun? I love it. Okay, so that is that part. Now we are going to go ahead and finish decorating, and then we can call it a day. I will bring in the pieces. So we have more re-inkers, because I think the re-inkers are adorable. And we also, let's see, another button. And finally, we have one more pen or a marker. This is like it looks so much like the Stamp Right markers. It's so cute. So I'm a sucker for cute. So I'm going to go ahead, quickly adhere these, and then we will have this card completed. And I think that it is just adorable. I hope you will give it a shot. This sweet, it starts with art, is just absolutely perfect for this card, I think. So we will put our re-inker up here. And again, nothing is straight, so no need to worry and stress about that. I'm just going to put my little button here in my last re-inker. I will bring in my original card and show you the difference. And you can see how they look pretty much identical, except this whole problem I fixed. So make sure you do not use a 2x2, but have a little white space. You could probably sponge it if you wanted it to blend in a little bit, but this is how it looks with it out, with, you know, like that. So I really enjoy this card. I will show you again my template pieces. So you, real briefly, when you're putting these on, you want to start with your whole square and then work your way up in using the tear and tape. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please comment below. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any stamping order needs, please email me at mewants3@gmail.com. I'd be happy to help you place an order with the hostess code. Also, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Have a wonderful day. Happy stamping.